cost efficient as a whole, but to unbundle the service and to say, am I the most cost efficient on each part of the service? Now, what I mean by that is when you're delivering an order, there are three legs to it from a transportation standpoint. One is where you pick up the order. The second is the middle mile, and then there's the last mile, which is the distribution center. So we say not only do we have to be lowest cost across all three, we also have to be the lowest cost on each of these individually, right? The reason that is a strategic call, because then the logic is you cannot be unbundled. If you're the cheapest player in the space on all of the individual parts as well as the sum, actually nobody can compete with you on even one single element of the service. And then you can actually open out each of those three. So those are the three core metrics that we sort of track. And then there's a whole bunch of auxiliary metrics that we track as well. Return rates, cash handling time, amount of cash handled, fidelity of the cash service. All of those are tracked separately. So these are the three major metrics that you would look at, the major management metrics. There's only one way to do it, which again comes back to the partnership question. We started out for the first 4 years by owning every part of our transportation network. So essentially, every person who came and delivered a product to you was trained and was a delivery employee. What we've done over the last year is to bring close to about 2,400 partners into our network who bring flexible capacity. So essentially what we're doing is we go to local retailers. So we have 2,200 local retail partners. So as an example, Rambhai could be a partner for us, where we just go off and give him 20 parcels and say, hand these off to the students in the campus when they get here, right? Or similarly, the grocer under an apartment complex is a delivery extension. He's what we call an alternate delivery partner, right? Now there are two kinds. One is where they augment capacity in the locations that we're already present in, right? So let's say in Delhi, we have the ability to deliver, call it 30,000 orders a day, right? These guys add a flex capacity of another 5,000-6,000 orders a day, which allows us to stretch. The second kind of partner is where we opened up our back-end transport management system, simplified it, and started providing it as a service to other courier companies. Now those courier companies, which what we call constellation partners, right? Because the idea is it's like a constellation of courier companies all over the country. They extend our reach in locations that we don't service directly. So to give you an example, in most of Bihar, in the smaller towns, delivery doesn't go direct. We manage the middle mile all the way up to the city. So let's say you're going to Ara or to Katira or to Sasaram or somewhere like that. We would drive into the city, hand off the shipments to a third-party partner, and that partner would then deliver at the last mile. So there are two kinds of partners that we build over there who give us flex. One of them is the constellation partner, one of them is the retail delivery partner. But they allow us to stretch up and down. See, the ultimate entry barrier there are two things. If you're looking to build a long-term, low-cost lead, there are only two ways that businesses succeed in the very long run. One is either they're the lowest cost player in their space, or the other alternative is they build a product that people want to buy. Right? So you're either Apple or Amazon, and there's literally nothing in between. All businesses converge to one of these two models in the long run. We've chosen the second path, right? So the long-term competitive advantage for a business which wants to win in the low-cost space is to just be the most efficient by far. Your cost structure itself is a competitive advantage. See, it's impossible today for somebody to come back in and replicate our cost structure without spending twice the amount of money that we did, and to still take 2 years to do it. So we'll still be ahead. All competitive advantages over a very long run can be purchased. The point is that it's a very big barrier and nobody wants to get into this space. See, to replicate us, you would have to sink in close to about $120 million in CapEx to start with, and then wait for the network to catch up over the next 2 or 3 years. You'd have to train 5 years worth of employees, 15,000 people across 500 cities. That's a very big competitive advantage. And ultimately, it's in the engineering, the technology, the way the system interacts with itself that we have our competitive advantages. There's really one major reason to build a successful partnership, especially in the B2B environment. It's you have to show that person the money. It has to work. There has to be an economic value that gets created for your partner, which is why the person comes and works with you. What we did was to go to all of these retail outlets and say, listen, you're a grocer. आप इस building में वैसे delivery कर रहे हो, right? You're going and delivering grocery to my house or to somebody else's house. You have a छोटू who's doing this. आप उसको कितना पगार दे रहे हो? 8,000 रुपए दे रहे हो महीने का. What if I could add another 3,000 rupees to that guy's earnings? You take another 30 parcels for me, go to the same houses that you deliver grocery in, and go and deliver it, and I'll pay you 15 rupees per parcel every day. 50 parcels karo. That's 750 rupees a day. Over a month, you end up making, whatever, 20,000 rupees if you're a partner. So all the partners were basically brought in purely on the economic logic. We made sure to tell them that you have no incremental investment. Aapka grocery store hai, aapka already store hai. You already have the guy who's delivering the product. All I'm doing is giving you another 30 parcels. And iske liye I'm giving you a smartphone. Is smartphone pe aapko mere ko batana hai ki when did you deliver the order? That's it. The investment is mine. Once you pitch it that way, there's nobody who will come and say, "Nay, I don't want to do this." So it was pretty easy for us to scale up the partnerships. From a product standpoint or from a value proposition standpoint, there's no difference to how you build a B2B business or a B2C business or a consumer to consumer business or all business has a very basic set of rules. You have a set of customers who express a need and are willing to pay a price for that need to be fulfilled. And as a company, you've got to figure out how you meet that need, whether it's producing a pair of shoes, figuring out how to give them a menu from which they can order, or whether you provide a transportation service. At a certain level of abstraction, it makes no difference. The only difference between consumers and businesses is that businesses typically, and to start with at the surface, have a better articulated set of needs than consumers do. Business as delivery, for instance, I understand the pain points of our business completely. Like for instance, payroll is a big headache for us. So it's pretty easy for a company which wants to do payroll management to come to us and say, I know exactly how to manage payroll for 15,000 employees, come and sell this to us. What we did was to get our customers and to get them to co-develop with us. B2C companies typically don't start that way. They start with an idea. Right? Uber starts because Travis Kalanick and his friends have a night out on town and then they can't find a cab back, and Travis thinks what a great idea it is if I have an app which can get me a car. Right? Zomato starts because the guys there think we can't order food. It's a great idea if I could find every restaurant. So in that sense, they think of themselves as consumers and then build the product out from there. Right? In a B2B environment, the advantage is you can go and talk to 10 potential customers and say, all right, what's your problem? What's your problem? What's yours? Each of them then expresses a relatively similar sort of need. And then you have the ability to combine all of those into the minimum viable product. So that, for instance, when we started, we discovered there were 3 elements in the value proposition that mattered to everybody. Speed, which is how fast will you deliver to my customer. Second was visibility. Can I see exactly where every order is? Can my customer see exactly where every order is? And the third on top of that was, can you handle my cash very well? So we started out with a simple 3-pronged value proposition, which was common to every single one of our customers. It's not to say they didn't have other unexpressed needs, they did. But this was the basic, minimum, common sort of set of needs that they articulated. Which is where B2B and B2C become slightly different. You can use your customers as reliable partners. You can't use your customers as very reliable partners in a B2C environment because there's too much noise in the data. And if you go back 8 years when Meru Cabs was large and you went to every single customer in the country and said, well, how should I think of designing a cab service? Nobody would have come with Uber. Right? Whereas in the B2B environment, what you can do is to sort of start with the minimum viable product, get it going, enter your customer, and then as you sort of understand more about the challenges they face in more detail, then you build on add-on services. So we started warehousing 2 years after we started transportation. A year and a half after that, we started LTL. So what happens is your customer's business starts influencing the growth and scale of your business. It starts influencing the product decisions you take. B2C also after a while starts becoming similar, but you also have to make larger leaps of faith in some ways. You think of yourself as a customer and then start. That's the major difference between B2B and B2C. But otherwise, the only other difference is the sales cycles. Right? B2C is more about marketing. B2B is more about sales in some ways. Right? So you have to build a brand in a B2C business, whereas in a B2B business, it's a question of getting the service right again and again and again and again and again and again. And then you have a sales cycle. So you say, I'll go and meet 10,000 potential customers. I'll convert 50% of them into good leads. 10% of them will then start working with me, and they have typically a longer sales cycle depending on the service you sell. Well, the first one was we realized that we needed to increase the speed of cash processing. So to give you a sense, when we started the business, our competitors used to take 30 days to return cash to the shipper, which meant if you were a COD run e-commerce business, you would first of all acquire stock for which you would pay, typically at that point if you were a small e-commerce company, in advance. Then it would take you 30 to 45 days to liquidate the stock. then 7 days of shipping, then 30 days of cashback. Right? So it take you nearly, your working capital cycle was 2.5 months. So we said, look, we can't influence the first part. We can certainly influence the other two. So drop the 7-day shipping to 1 day and drop the 30-day reconciliation cycle to 2 days. Right? Why we picked 2 days was we said, in the long run, for this to be a neutral service to payment gateway, an online payment gateway, you have to match the online payment gateway in terms of both cost and speed. An online gateway will typically take 48 to 72 hours to return capital to your business. So we said we have to design offline the same way. What we did was to make sure when orders were being delivered, they were all being electronically tracked. It was step one. It sounds like it was the easiest thing to do. It was not very hard to do for us, but it is hard to do across an entire network. So it was, that's why the existing guys weren't able to do it as well. So our guys had smartphones. Every time they actually went out and delivered an order, they would mark it.